Okay, our first performer tonight is Anne Breedlove in The Sheep. What do you do when you find yourself, after spending 3.5 hours consuming a 5-course meal and a bottle of wine, bicycling back roads in the dark with a bunch of very unhappy sheep? Well, let's find out. Please welcome Anne Breedlove.
Wow, there's a lot of bodies out there tonight. That's wonderful. Thanks so much for coming, even if you know me or don't know me. Let's see. It was twilight. A crescent moon cast just enough light to help us make our way in the increasing darkness. A gentle wind pushed gray clouds across the sky, and bats flitted about, though we felt their presence more than saw them. The back road followed a ridge, the moon's light revealing undulating hills going off into the distance. So entranced by the magic of the moment, we dared not speak, continuing on side by side in silence. A herd of sheep heard us, frantic, wondering what we were, panicked and bolted, desperate to get away from they knew not what. We had seen them hours earlier on our way to the restaurant. They became this vague, agitated, pulsing mass, shifting, desperate to escape us, but alas, they couldn't. Fenced in on the opposite side of the fence, we both had the same destination in mind. So we continued this pas de deux for a good mile or so, all the way back to the farm. Madame Odette raised sheep and rabbits. A widow alone, she converted the empty bedrooms in her farmhouse into rooms for let. We spent the last 2 nights of our 8-night tour in a bedroom on the top floor in a steeply sloped ceiling with a big window framing a picturesque view of this remote corner of France where the Dordogne meets the Lot. As we readied for sleep, we could hear the sheep out in the field, still agitated by the drama of their narrow escape from us. For our 20th wedding anniversary, my husband Jim and I wanted to do something special. We hadn't done much adventuresome travel since having children. We were itching to do something new, and both kids were teenagers, not so interested in a trip with us just at that point. Our gaze turned to Europe. We were keen to return. We had done an unlimited 4-month train pass in '77, crisscrossing the continent. None of the countries we visited captivated us quite the way France did, so we decided to return. Paris for sure, Jim said, but I'd like to do something different. And I'm like, what could that be? What could be different? And then on a rainy winter weekend, while browsing Moe's bookstore on Telegraph Avenue, I picked up a bicycling magazine. Self-guided French bicycle tour read this tiny little 3-line ad buried in the back classifieds. It was a mom and pop operation run by a Canadian couple out of Manitoba, Canada. Ruth loved all things French, and Rick did all things mechanical. They both liked to travel, so they started a travel business. Self-guided meant they booked our accommodations, provided the bikes, the helmets, and the maps. All we had to do was show up and cycle rural France. It definitely qualified as different. Still, we took a while to commit. We were cyclists, all right. We actually bonded over bicycling when we first met on Guerrero and 17th. But touring for 8 days was something else yet again. We weren't sure we were strong enough. We weren't sure we had the stamina. And Jim also worried about furnished bikes. A stickler for mechanics, he knew there are 2 kinds of sprockets. Little ones with high gears for racing really fast, and big ones with slow gears for comfort. Many people don't know this, and if you get a bike with racing gears, you can suffer pretty badly because you don't have the stamina or the muscles to handle the hills. So we spent the spring months putting in as much cycling as we could. He negotiated a 980 work schedule that gave him every other Friday off, allowing us to put in one solid day of cycling every other week while the kids were in school and the world was at work. Finally, the first week of June, we kissed two very pouty kids goodbye. They were not happy to learn they were not spending 2 weeks home alone, instead sharing the house with their grandmother. Our stop in Paris was a homecoming of sorts. Our honeymoon hotel from 77 was still in business. I'm really astounded it hadn't fallen down. I don't know if any of you remember Let's Go, the old cheap student travel guide. Well, they gave the hotel very high marks, but poor location. Henri Quatre was an extremely funky, worse than shabby chic hotel, a dive, really. Warped floors, wobbly stairs. We had one of those thin mattresses on, remember those old metal box springs that creak and whatever. Our fifth floor room, the toilet to our fifth floor room was down at the end of a hallway. You had to go outside into a stairwell and cross over the stairwell to get to the toilet. That's how polished this was. But it was right there on the Ile de la Cité, the heart of Paris. So we settled for location and gave up comfort. We spent 5 days there retracing old memories and making a few new ones before we boarded a train for this remote historic hilltop town of Gourdon. Ruth, a trim and fit brunette, met us at the train station, loading our suitcases into her car. As she navigated the swirly historic streets to that night's lodging, she launched into details about the tour, the region, the cycling, the markets, the food, everything we had to look forward to before she turned into the crushed stone driveway of a relatively modern home just beyond the historic town limits. A rotund Madame Jean came out in a floral provincial house dress, smiling, bienvenue à Gourdon, and me remembering the silly line in my French introductory Cal textbook, chirped in reply, je suis heureuse de faire votre connaissance. As the four of us made small talk, a beat-up white van pulled in behind Ruth's car, and a man in coveralls marked with grease, obviously Rick, got out. Jim immediately, like a bat out of hell, went to connect with Rick, help him unload the bikes, talk shop, mechanics, and was very happy to see that our bikes would have the kind of gears that would make the 8-day tour pleasant rather than a struggle. Next morning, we entered Madame Jean's dining room and found a scrumptious breakfast, brioche, croissants, baguettes, coffee, tea, juice. Am I making you hungry yet? Jam, butter, Nutella, fruit, arranged around a beautiful bouquet of flowers on a dark mahogany sideboard. A young couple from Chicago were on the last day of their tour. Oh, they said it was so hard. The hills here are so steep. Jim and I immediately looked at one another. They were at least 20 years younger than us, wondering what we had gotten ourselves into. After breakfast, we left our suitcases for Rick to drive to that night's lodging. Our self-guided tour included the transportation of our stuff so that we could ride on unloaded bikes. We bid adieu to Madame Jean and set off. Ruth gave us color-coded maps. Yellow lines highlighted the shortest route from day to day to get from place to place, and the red lines were additional loops for those so inclined to explore more. We followed the yellow line due north, arriving in the bustling market town of Souillac just past 11 a.m. We knew from experience that French shops closed promptly for lunch, so we hustled to buy the makings of a picnic. Pâté from the charcuterie, cheese from the fromagerie, a baguette from the boulangerie, 2 pastries from the patisserie, some fruit, a tomato, and a bottle of wine from the épicerie. We pedaled west out of town as the shopkeepers lowered their curtains and locked their doors. Following a dirt path, walking our bikes down to the riverbank, we found a table and benches made out of rough-hewn logs. And as the Dordogne River slowly rolled past, we savored our well-earned lunch. Jim summed it up best on a postcard home. Paris, he wrote, seems less interesting. After lunch, we realized we were ahead of schedule. So we took one of those optional red loops. Arriving in this sleepy village square, we noticed the church doors were open. So we leaned our bikes against a bench and tiptoed into this cool, quiet space. The 12th century Romanesque church was filled with eye candy galore, stations of the cross, chandeliers, statues and paintings of saints, alcoves filled with flickering votive candles, a majestic but silent altar, and scores of small white marble tiles etched in black with the single word merci, filling an entire wall. I wondered about the stories behind each of those tiles. Our tour guide gave us directions to many of the prestigious chateaux and castles of the region, but they required us to know and be on their schedule, to wait in line, to pay a fee, and to go through in a group at their pace. We much preferred the humble churches that we could enjoy at our own pace, at our own time. For every village, we discovered, had a church, and we found most open during the day and free to enjoy and enter. Back on our bikes, after we came out of the church, we stopped at a peeling wood sign, Moulin de la Tour, enticing us down this tree-lined, canopied alleyway to a rundown stone complex. A middle-aged man in one of those sleeveless blue t-shirts and dirty green apron came out from behind this vast door. Jean-Pierre was reviving the old mill and had just started crushing a new batch of walnuts. Welcoming us inside this whole dark room, we found this vertical stone wheel about 3 feet in diameter and a foot thick. And it was rolling around and around and around and around on this massive circular stone slab about 4 feet in diameter and 2 feet thick, wrapped around the top rim with an iron belt that had a funnel to direct the walnut mash into a trough. The entire movement was generated by this ancient iron geared contraption that went up to across the ceiling, out the building, connecting to a 16th century water wheel, powering the entire process. Jean-Pierre then led us across the courtyard to the bottling room, where he whipped out a knife, cut some slices off of the tar, opened a new bottle of walnut oil, and drizzled it in slices. It was so delicious, we bought a bottle, Jim nestling it carefully in his pannier. We did not arrive at that night's lodging, La Ferme Fleurie, until 7 p.m. And we weren't wiped out the way the Chicago couple made us fear. We figured the Bay Area hills are a better training ground for international cycle touring than the flat Midwest. Our host, a vivacious Madame Martine, came running out to meet us. Zut de l'heure, she said. Vous êtes très tard. Ça va bien? Quelques problèmes? She asked us as she herded us into this cavernous, cobwebbed old barn filled with rusty and dusty farm equipment going back centuries. It took a while for our eyes to adjust to the dim light and find a space to park our bikes. As we reassured her we were fine. She, though, was very worried about us, for dinner started promptly at 7:30, and we must shower and be dressed appropriately. She urged us as she ushered us up into the farmhouse and up the stairs to our room. We were the last ones to be seated in the family-run and farm-supplied restaurant across the courtyard. Converted from a utilitarian shed, the charming, intimate room had only 6 tables, with rough stone walls that were softened by sparkly candles and pretty flowers on crisp white cotton tablecloths. They put us in a back corner. We could tell from the soft murmurs that everyone was speaking French. And then the courses began, one after another, each with wine. 8 o'clock turned into 9, then 10. We struggled to stay upright, wondering when the meal was going to end. We were certainly hungry enough to enjoy the dinner, but we were plenty tired by that time. Finally, after what we assumed was the final dessert course, we got up to leave. Mais non, cried the maitre d', you must return. There's another course. We saved the best for last. So embarrassed, we slunk back to our chairs to enjoy a second dessert course before finally being allowed to return to our rooms. Between the day's ride and the formidable meal, we were both asleep within seconds of our heads hitting the pillows that night. 2 days later, as we were cycling in the pouring rain from the town of Les Aisies to Faux-Lascaux, the exactly recreated 3-dimensional interior copy of the famous, world-famous Paleolithic art cave that the French built in a field nearby to protect the original from being destroyed by the moisture in the breath of the tens of thousands of annual visitors. We're cycling in the pouring rain and we stopped under an awning just to catch a break. Look, Jim pointed to a sign across the street in the window, Repas au restaurant. Knocking on the door, a hunched over old lady dressed all in black, her dress to her ankles, welcomed us into this spare kitchen with a roaring fire in an immense hearth. It was a scene straight out of a Hugo novel. Without saying a word, she sat us at an old wooden table on 2 creaking chairs, put down 2 hot bowls of broth, a half batar of dark brown bread, a big slab of homemade butter, and filled 2 tumblers with red wine from an unlabeled bottle. The soup warmed our damp bodies, and the wine soothed our jittery nerves about spending all day cycling in the rain. Our final night found us at the sheep and rabbit farm. Unlike Mesdames Jean and Gordon and Martine at La Ferme Fleurie, Madame Odette was a working farmer. She welcomed us in slim, worn work pants rather than the traditional provincial floral house dress common back then. She put us in the attic bedroom with a killer view of the countryside. Our tour included 2 special dinners. The first one on our first night, the second one, as it happened, was our final night. There was a hitch, though. It was 2 miles from the farm to the restaurant. La Vieille Tour was yet again another family-run, farm-supplied restaurant, but we had to get there on our own, for there were no taxi cabs in these boondocks. We could either walk or bike. So we pulled out the nicest clothes we had left after 8 days of cycling in our suitcases and switched out the wrinkles and hopped on the bikes. Arriving at La Vieille Tour, we looked around and hid our bikes in some bushes and waltzed into the restaurant, no one the wiser for circumstances. After yet another unparalleled dining experience, 5 courses in 3+ hours, we went out and retrieved our bikes to make our way back to Madame Odette's in the twilight and catch our magical rendezvous with her sheep. Needless to say, these 8 days were a game changer for us. It was sheer bliss cycling the back roads of France and being pampered this way. As we cycled from village to village, we fell in love with France all over again. And we both agreed without saying a word that this trip had to be only just the beginning for us. We wanted to figure out how to do what Ruth and Rick had introduced us to with their self-guided tour on our own, just the 2 of us. on our own two bikes, following the back roads, going down forsaken paths to mills, bicycling with sheep, on the seats of our own two bikes. The question was, could we do it? Were we strong enough? Did we have what it takes? And the story of that learning journey is just out, hot off the presses in my first book, Part-Time Nomads. Thank you.
You know, I was wondering, you know, if you could keep on, because the force, it's got a lot of power, and it makes me feel like it makes me feel like
Wow. That was one hell of a journey, wasn't it? And breed love, everybody. Well, and now, because it's Monday Night Mark, for something completely different, our next performer is DEON Price in Raised in Hell. This piece is a one-man presentation on the humor and hardship of a dysfunctional upbringing. It touches on a young teenage boy's struggle to survive a challenging family life in a broken home, poverty, and an alcoholic mother. Please welcome DEON Price.
You have no control of the family you're born into. You have no control of the environment you're forced to be raised in. But you can control how that environment will affect you. You just have to play with the hand that's being dealt to. I wasn't dealt a great hand. Matter of fact, somebody would say, I was dealt a pretty crappy hand. And it went a little something like this. Card number 1, alcoholic mother. Card number 2, no father. Who's dealing this? Card number 3, living in poverty. Card number 4, in and out of foster homes. Who's dealing here? Card number 5, wrong place, wrong time. Living in the South Central LA during the heart of the crack epidemic. The worst time in history to be in LA. What a hand. My mother migrated from the South to escape segregation and an alcoholic and abusive husband, only to become somewhat of an alcoholic abuse herself. Came out to LA. My mother's drink of choice was a screwdriver. Anybody know what a screwdriver is? Vodka and what? Orange juice, right? So now vodka is clear and don't have much smell to it. So as a kid, I thought it was the orange juice that had her losing her damn mind. So I wouldn't see nothing but her drink this orange juice, and she would lose it and start cussing people out, throwing knives at people. I'm like, what is in this orange juice? We got this woman acting so crazy, right? This beautiful, nurturing woman would transform into this abusive and violent person in seconds. That orange juice, what is in this orange juice? So naturally, I had a phobia of orange juice. I'd be over my cousin's house and family said, yeah, you want some orange juice? I'm slapping out people's hands. No, it's not bad one. Open it out. My uncle said, I don't know what's wrong with this boy. Something ain't right. Well, they pour out one more carton of orange juice, I'm gonna choke the hell out of him. So needless to say, I was damaged goods, right? My mother was she had a very sharp tongue, being from the South. She couldn't say nothing to her. She hit you one of them Southern cliches. You couldn't say nothing to her. We get in trouble. I said, didn't I tell you to clean up this room? Well, I was gonna do it. Was going my ass. I was gonna be the damn president. Everything was her ass, by the way. I wanted to do it. Well, I wanted my ass. I wanted to be, people in hell wanted ice water. Couldn't say nothing to her, right? We be, you know, anything she had to do it. If I had to do it, well, if I had to say nothing, I'd be your daddy. She had a plan. You couldn't say nothing to this woman. Might as well just go and clean up the room. If you don't break nothing, I break something by accident. I said, well, I didn't mean to do it. Well, I didn't mean to have you accident it, but you're here, ain't you? I mean, it was an accident. So were you. She was that vicious. She would hit me with something. And I was a premature. I was born a little young, a little too soon. So I was always the smallest and underdeveloped kid. And she had that sharp tongue. She didn't care. She said, you were half-made, homemade, no ass, flat ass. Matter of fact, you ain't even got no ass. You just got a line in your butt. Go sit your ass, sit your line down somewhere. She was vicious. So you couldn't be sensitive in my household. But what she was doing, I don't know if it was intentional, but she was preparing me for school. Because by the time I got to grade school, the kids would start teasing me and start talking about me and teasing. I was like, really? This all y'all got this week? I got called worse at breakfast this morning. So she was vicious that way, right? So the alcoholism eventually led to domestic violence, as it would. Those doggone, that doggone special orange juice. So I remember the culminating event that happened that changed everything. I was out at 5 years old. My mother was the last of 9. And I remember very vividly, one of my older sisters dropped a bomb, told my mother she was pregnant at 16. And all hell broke loose. I could hear it escalating. The violence and the voices came up and it escalated to my mother taking an RC cola bottle, breaking it over the counter and coming after my sister. Horrible scene. And in an attempt to block the blow, she did end up with cuts to her head and her head. It was a horrible scene for a 6-year-old to see all this going on right in front of me. My sister ran out of the house with all this blood off the street. Commotion came out. And all of a sudden, I knew things would never be the same. The police were on the scene. People all around the neighborhood. They brought my mother out of the house. She still had her house coat and house shoes on. She never broke eye contact with me. I could see her. And I would never forget that moment, seeing my mother being put in a squad car and driving away in a black and white LAPD. It was a horrible scene. They say all it takes is one bad decision that can cost you everything. Your life, your freedom, and in my case, your family. So for the next 18 months, the only time I would see my mother was through a cloudy little visiting window at the LA County Jail visiting center for a 6-year-old child. What a horrible thing to put a child through. Or I'm sitting on a hard courtroom bench in court being interrogated by adults and attorneys asking me about the worst day of my life. With my greatest need, my mom, parent, right there, I was not allowed to hug her, not allowed to touch her, couldn't even do anything, could barely speak to her. Putting the greatest need, the nurturing thing of a parent right in front of a child's face and never giving them access to it is emotional child abuse. And I went through that for years, for 18 months. So inevitably, we were on our way to the wonderful world of foster home system. The foster care system in LA at the time, in the early and mid-70s, was not sophisticated at all. It was eventually individual warehouses for unwanted children. For one reason or another, your family was either not willing or unable to take care of you. So you were in and out of these foster homes. And by this time, of my mom's 9 kids, only the 4 younger ones was going through this system. And I'm the last of them. And this wonderful family was gracious enough to take all 4. Now imagine having 4 kids in your house. This woman was generous enough and her middle-aged husband to take all 4 of us. Let's call her Miss H. Miss H was a wonderful woman, but she was kind of special. She had dogs she would put in the house, and the dogs would come in every now and then, and they would take a dump in the middle of the doggone kitchen, on the kitchen floor. And this woman, Miss H, would, go over there and pick up the fresh, moist dog mess with her bare hands. And we would watch about it. We would see that, and of course she would wash her hands thoroughly, but to a kid, those hands are never clean. And forever, we stayed with this woman for almost a year, and we would never allow this woman to touch us. She was going through greatness. DEON, come over here, come over here, come on. I did everything I could to avoid this woman from touching us. We would have meetings that night to decide on who she touched that day. If she touched you, you was disowned for life. She had us seeing therapists and counselors, and we're like, ain't nothing wrong with us. What's wrong with you? You need a counselor, you need therapy. You might pick up dogs with their bare hands. They got some screw loose, right? So, one of the happiest days of my life was when my older sister, one of my oldest siblings, was about to come and pick us up from this foster home. It was at the end. My mother was being released from county jail. So we were coming to reunite. So I was so happy. One of the most joyous times to say you're going home. Now, it doesn't matter if we were going into what situation, as long as we're coming home together with your family, it was special. So on the last day, we have all that stuff packed up against the wall, and this woman comes up to me, Miss Boo-Boo hands, and says, DEON, I'm a miss you. And grabbed me by the face. I was screaming like somebody stabbed me in the back. Boo-Boo hand and touched my face. I was done. I really did need some therapy after that. I was messed up. Right? But needless to say, we knew we were not going into lap of luxury. My mother was coming out of county jail. She had a criminal record. She had alcoholic problems. She had no job experience. She was a single parent with 4 kids. So needless to say, we wasn't going into lap of luxury. But like my older brother says, it's better, to live struggle together or live good apart, which is better for you. I'd rather, so we didn't mind struggling as long as we were together. So now I'm in middle school. And middle school is a place where you establish your identity, your culture, your social reputation. But my mother, being nursed on the welfare system, did all she could, but she had to shop for clothes and things in the same place we got grocery. She don't get grocery and shoes in the same location. That's a fashion no-no. So this is a circumstance we're in. So my mother would buy me these imitation Nikes at the time. They were called Ikes. Now, Ikes is Nike spelled backwards. The swoosh used to go up. The swoosh was going down. Nikes were new, so I didn't know. It was a backwards and upside down. Matter of fact, I was dyslexic anyway, so shit looked normal to me. But I stepped foot on campus with those upside down Nikes. All took one step. Hey, DEON got some upside down Nikes. 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids, 9 kids following me around, teasing me, harassing me, really just giving me the blues all day long, how horrible it is to go through that. I was so upset. Finally, I got upset, smacked some kid in the face, and I ran home. I took those shoes off. I threw them in the garbage. I walked home the rest of the day barefoot. I hated this situation. I hated my circumstances. And it wasn't the upside down Nikes. It was something called Pro-Kids. Pro-Kids were imitation too. Pro-Kids had 2 stripes. So I learned from my situation. So this time, instead of getting clowned again in school, I went and got me a Sharpie and painted an extra stripe so they would look like Adidas. I did what I could, but I was swagger about it, so I kept moving. I didn't want nobody to see me. I never stood still. You gotta use the bathroom. I don't want nobody to see me home as Adidas, right? So those are my circumstances. I hated my situation. I didn't know what alcoholism was. I just know my mother would drink this orange juice and things went bad real quick. I hated my circumstances. Even at that age, I didn't hate my mother, but I hated my situation. Even at that young age, I was saying, listen, I got to do what I got to do to get the hell out of the situation somehow, some way. Then something happened in high school. By the time I got to high school, something very special and very sad happened in LA. You know anything about the 80s? Crack epidemic hit. In the mid-80s, crack was so special, it affected hit this community so hard. And people were losing their natural responsibility. Crack took all that away. We see some adults doing some very peculiar behaviors, selling, doing anything they can, compromise themselves to get and stay high. I saw a man sell a whole car, running car, Cadillac for some crack. Well, I saw that, yeah, he did. I saw somebody break into my house, running down the street with a fully decorated Christmas tree. He had stolen out somebody's house. What the hell are you gonna do with that? This was crack behavior. It was strange behavior. So, but this time I'm in high school, all of my older siblings up and on their own. Now it's just me and my mom. And alcoholism, along with health problems, have completely consumed my mom. And so it's just me and her. So I'm in this apartment, and all of a sudden I hear something in my place of residence. Mom's sitting there out of it. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Somebody's Okay, wait a minute. So now I'm a little alarmed. My heart is pumping. I go get a baseball bat and I go creep toward the noise. It's toward the kitchen. What's going on? I'm a little scared, but I'm also, who got the nerve to be in my house? So I finally get into the kitchen. I walk, open the door, lights on. It's the neighborhood crackhead had broke and snuck in the house. He's in the kitchen cooking. He had omelet. He was making omelet. He had cheese and eggs. I'm like, what the hell? First I was mad. I was like, wait, I was impressed. I'm like, I almost actually make me one before he left. But I was like, man, if you don't get out of my house, I chased this man down the street. I'm like, get the hell. And I was like, you know, I was pretty good athlete, but I couldn't catch this dude. Let me tell you something. Never underestimate the quickness of a crackhead. I could not catch this dude. But on my way back home, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. The air is hitting my face. I have no shoes. I'm thinking, damn, wow, you got to get the hell out of LA somehow, some way. It hadn't happened. So now, after crack evolved into gang wars. Crack, it became gang wars, violence, making Los Angeles one of the most violent places to live in the United States. And I'm going through high school at the time. I'm a prime suspect or victim for everything. So I'm paranoid. Talk about PTSD, right? I was scared everywhere. So one thing I did, I got my first job. First job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, trying to get my own. The first thing I did when I got my first job was bought me some real doggone Nikes with the swoosh going up, right? Next thing I got me was one of the biggest fashion things, trends at the time in the mid-'80s was a big old puffy starter jacket. All the sports teams had one, right? So one thing I did, I bought me a big red 76ers starter jacket. So I was getting off work at the clothing shift. I got my starter jacket. I got some chicken. I got money. That's all you need. You're a young man, you give a brother a jacket, some money, and some chicken. You top of the world. So I'm on the bus. What I wouldn't realize, what my older brother told me, always monitor your environment, make adjustments, and know when to settle. I wasn't paying attention. I'm riding through a neighborhood on the bus. And you remember gangs, I got a red jacket. I'm going through a neighborhood that's not so kind of red. So who I see on the corner? The neighborhood thug, notorious gang member named Boone, jumps on the bus. He sees me and I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm in the wrong spot with the wrong color on. I hear about this all the time. People getting shot and killed. It would happen so often, you didn't even hear it on the news. So I'm paranoid anyway. It's late at night, 2 people on the bus. This man gets on the bus, comes straight to the back of the bus, comes right up to me. My heart is beating through my chest. What am I gonna do? He walks up to me. What up the red jacket, cuz? Pulls me up, not trying to back up. Wait a minute. And he steps back and he has a gun. And my life flashed before my face. I just froze. I'm like, I just saying, there's nothing I can do. And he did what he gonna do. He did what he did. Took my money, took my jacket. He even took my chicken, which was kind of dirty, right? If you're gonna jack somebody, at least leave them something to eat. But from that point, I was so paranoid about where I went, what I wear, who I was with, and what neighborhood I was in. I was so stressed out, it was amazing, right? And unfortunately, our stability did not change. We kept moving, being unstable. But I made a promise to myself, no matter where we moved, I was not gonna change high schools. I was developing a little reputation. I played a little sports and I had a little reputation. The only stability I had was my high school reputation and my high school environment. So we moved this time, guess where we moved? I went to Dorsey High, which is on the west side of LA, which is a blood territory, if you know that, unfortunately, that's what the area. We moved on 82, south side of LA, which is blue territory. So I had to go, when I got out of practice, 7, 8 o'clock at night, I literally had to change clothes because I couldn't wear Dorsey gear because I didn't want to be affiliated. Couldn't wear red, couldn't wear blue, couldn't wear black, there was a gang. I just couldn't wear, I just started wearing plaid. Everything that was wrong got me plaid, everything. I just want to wear plaid, no plaid gangs around here. I'm just trying to be safe. I did what I had to do. But that bus ride home was so stressful because I was traumatized because I was in a new neighborhood. And the last thing you want to be at this time was the new guy in the neighborhood walking through this neighborhood at night. So imagine how stressful it was for me to try to get home. I had to literally creep through alleys and behind cars just to get home. Because these were ruthless, heartless killers. Couldn't care less who you were. You'd be in the wrong place, wrong time, they didn't care. So after going through all that, just getting home, I would finally get into my apartment. We lived on 80th and Hoover, and my bedroom was right on 80th Boulevard, on Hoover Boulevard, where everything went down on Hoover Boulevard. There was prostitution, there was all this stuff, gang, drugs, all this stuff went down right outside my window. Finally, when I would get home, say what's up to my mom, I would lay down and rest my nerves and just relax, getting home finally, praying and I'm thankful that I got home. As soon as I would rest my nerves and try to decrease, for a minute, pop, 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 I hear gunshots, which wasn't uncommon. It was almost as common as hearing a car horn or something. But this was dangerously close to my window when I started to relax. So I'm like, I didn't want to even look. So then a few moments later, I hear a commotion outside my window. A few more minutes, I hear emergency vehicles. I'm like, I don't know what's going on this time. I creep out and look out my bedroom window. Apparently, a young man had been shot up the street, and he made it down and collapsed right under my bedroom window. And as I'm looking out here, I saw the emergency personnel, people working on this young man. I could tell he was about late teens or early 20s, and I could see them covering him up, pronouncing him dead on the scene, right under my window. This is what I feel every day. That's a sight you will never get out of your head. From that moment, I never slept on that bed again, right by my window. You know what I did? I took the mattress on the bed, I tilted it up, and I leaned it up against the window on the front of the bed, paranoid that a stray bullet would come through my window. That's how I slept every night. Imagine getting a good night's sleep, living like that. And if they say something about being trauma-informed, my teacher would be like, you're sleeping in class. Why are you not studying for the SAT test? Why are your grades slipping, right? Why aren't you applying for this? Why are you studying for the final? I'm like, really? I'm trying to just get home without being shot and killed. That was all I was in survival mode. They had no idea what this young man was going through. So again, I'm thinking, gee, somehow, some way, you got to get the hell out of LA. How long did that? So I start thinking enough to get enough grade point average to apply to somebody's college university. I didn't care who it was, how it was, where it was. It could be Otisburg University somewhere. I didn't give a damn. If they would accept me, I sent out all these letters and all these applications. And my older brother would say, you can get 99 no's, but all you need is what? One yes. Right? And one of the happiest notices I got in the mail one day was my acceptance letter to San Francisco State University. Those Gators, right? All I got was one, right? That was the most, I kept it. Another notice I got, my older brother got me a one-way bus ticket from Los Angeles to San Francisco. These were the most important documents in my life. I kept them with my possession all the time. I slept with them. This was it. This is my ticket for freedom. I never let these two documents out of my sight. I kept them for the next few weeks. Then it happened. June 1986, Dorsey High graduation. There's 900 seniors. The class was so large, they had to move it to the sports arena of LA, right? And all my friends are celebrating and saying, hey, damn, what we gonna do? What we gonna do? I don't know about you. I don't know what y'all gonna do, but I'm getting the hell out of LA. And that was the moment, right? After all the drama, after all the stress, and after all this trauma I went through, at last, I finally found a way to get the hell out of LA. And finally, I found a way. No.
All night diners keep you awake.
quite a bit different from the first story. Yeah. What an amazing story, and are we not glad that Deon Price, I mean, we are, well, what am I trying to say? We are very glad that Deon Price made his way to the Bay Area. Deon Price! Well, and now for something even more different. Our final performer is Fontana Butterfield in Flower Child. Named after her mother's acid trip, Fontana was born on July 4th, 1967 to a self-professed flower child in San Francisco. Fontana and her mother grow up together hitchhiking across the country, living in communes and escaping cults. Please welcome Fontana Butterfield.
Standing at the side of a dusty country road at the edge of a dark forest, holding out my tiny, soft, and slightly pudgy right hand with the thumb sticking aggressively out. Somehow, there is a street light at this crossroads. It flickers throughout the night, threatening the deepest of darkest at any moment. I am 4 years old. I think I can control my fate if I try hard enough. Dear God, I'll be so, so good if you make the next car stop. Stop now! Stop now! Stop, please! Stop crying. Make your face pretty and nice. First, with all my 40-pound might, at the cars that whip by, leaving us in their dust. She is there, laying on the bags that hold everything we own. My mother, Marjorie. Busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for a train, when I was feeling near as faded as my jeans. Fontana keeps sending out good vibes. Mad vibes won't make the car stop. Yea, though I walk the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I want a bed and food and walls. I am raw with the weight of searching for a home. I wonder when happily ever after begins. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Somehow we get a ride and then another. And we make it to Rainbow Farm in Drain, Oregon in the summer of 1972. 300 acres of forests, creeks, gardens, pastures, and magical fairy rings. And a room of our own. We sleep together on a single mattress on the floor in the corner of our room upstairs in the big house. Days at Rainbow Farm begin at dawn, chanting Om in the meditation room. I feel the wood floor hum with the melodic voices of the Rainbow family. After breakfast, I scamper to my perch on the railing of the front porch of the main house, waiting for my pony, Raisin, to appear. Raisin trots up in the barn. I jump onto his back, grabbing hold of his rough mane for dear life as we boot down the hill. Preschool was me and my gang of naked hippie flower children, riding our ponies all over the 300 acres. For snack time, we'd saunter into the cornfield, pick a corn from the stalk, and eat it raw. Tastes alive. We'd make our way to the edge of the garden to stop at the teepee. Yeah, there is a real-life Native American man living in an actual teepee on this hippie commune. His name is Bill. Later, when I'm big, like now, I think about Bill and how these young, earnest men and women blatantly appropriated Native American culture. I don't know what Bill thought of this at the time, but to me, he was solid and kind and taught me to play chess. It's summer. I'm in the back of a hot cargo van with all 7 of the Rainbow family kids, a tumble of blankets, wild hair, and the crumbs of many rice cakes. Not only do we kids not have seatbelts, we don't have seats. Mommy, I miss Raisin. Why can't he come with us? Fontana, no. You can't bring a pony on a road trip. But why though? Fontana, stop. You'll see Raisin when we get back to Rainbow Farm. Mommy, why are we going to Colorado? I don't want to have my birthday in Colorado. Colorado. Did Bill tell you about the prophecy? What's a prophecy? According to prophecy, 200 years ago, the Native American nations predicted that the great white buffalo would reappear in Granby, Colorado, at the top of Tabletop Mountain on July 4th, 1972. My birthday! When the great-great-grandchildren of the white conqueror would grow their hair long, rebel against society, and gather together. My birthday? Sure. Mommy, what is society? And why is it called Tabletop Mountain? Is it because it's a mountain which looks like a table? That looks like a table. Shh, dear. Let's try and sleep for a while. Mommy, will I get to have a birthday cake this year? We'll see. We are one in the spirit, we are one in the Lord. They will know we are brothers by our love, by our love. We arrive in Granby, Colorado, and the base of Tabletop Mountain. We hike 8 miles up. I keep my eyes peeled for the great white buffalo. Finally, we enter a clearing and the whole world opens up. Oh, I see a group of mostly naked men digging a trench by the forest line. A woman with a baby on her breast squats, making bricks out of mud and grass. Tents are created out of rope and tarp, outdoor kitchens, bonfire circles, drum circles, chanting, and long-haired, tie-dye clad dancers mingle with newly returned vets, their faces filled with shock and awe. Everyone is stoned. Oh, little lady, isn't it wild? Everyone's here to celebrate your birthday. Oh, wow, far out. It's your birthday. Wait. Your name is Fontana. You were born on the 4th of July. What a trip. So, how old are you now? I'm gonna be 5, but I can't be 5 until I have my cake. That evening, sitting around the epic snaking bonfire circle, waiting for the white buffalo, songs are sung, joints are passed, and out of the smoky swirl, my cake appears. Carrot with cream cheese frosting, decorated with flowers, and even a candle. And then hundreds of flower children at their peak sing their hearts out to me. The great white buffalo never appeared. We may get back to Rainbow Farm, and Raisin meets me at the gate. That winter, we experienced record cold and snowfall. The roads are closed. There are about 40 men, women, and children living off my mother's 1 welfare check. There is a constant pot of lentil stew on the wood-burning stove, right next to the kettle of peyote tea. Oh, sure, honey, you can have a little sip. That's fine. Record cold, the roads are closed. We're starving. The men decide to hunt a deer. Garrett Beck, a kind man with fluffy hair, fashions together a bow and some arrows. And the men stalk a buck up and down the snowy hill for hours until finally, from my perch on the porch, I see red crimson blood flowing down the snowy hill, and the men are victorious. Meat! We have meat! The smell of the meat cooking in the open air is intense. Garrick, what's that? Venison. Venison. The word sounds chocolatey. I look up at him with huge eyes, drunk with the smell of the venison and perhaps the sip of peyote tea. Then Garrett, slowly and with great care, offers me the heart of the deer. I take the sacrament in both hands, cradling the musky meat in my tiny fingers. It is smoky and juicy, and I am alive. That Christmas at Rainbow Farm, I received my first real store-bought Christmas present. A large-size Hershey chocolate bar. Oh, I open it slowly, crinkling the silver paper, smelling the intoxicating milk chocolate. It tingles my nose and raises the hairs on my arms, salivating as the first perfect square melts on my tiny pink tongue. I savor the Hershey bar for days. It becomes my little buddy. My secret, my superpower against the honey, the agave, and the carob. We make it to spring, and then, for some reason, we leave Rainbow Farm and we are back on the road again. One morning, I wake up in a real bed made of rich dark wood. I peer up through a cloud of crisp, fluffy softness and see flowing white curtains and a closet that matches the bed. I open it and see expertly folded white towels and feel squishy, soft white carpet under my feet. I listen to the quiet lay on the clean carpet. Fontana, we can't stay here. We have to go now. What? Why? Mommy, let me hear. Oh, Mommy, you always say that love is the answer, and that's what they say. Mommy, I want to stay here with the Love family. My mother gets on the floor with me and wraps her arms around me. She smells like fresh baked bread and vanilla. Her hands are soft, fingers long. Her chest envelops me. I feel her warm attention glow through me. Fontana, if we stay here, I'm gonna have to screw the leader, Love Israel, and I don't want to. It hardly seems fair to me. His name is Love. Still, I know. The energy changes when he's in the room. I hear a hush and feel a prickly, better behaved feeling that grows like shame. We leave in a hurry and we are back on the road again. She is hopeful. I am resentful. I don't know this word yet, but the feeling blooms. We land in Sonoma County. I go to school. For lunch, Mom packs me chapatis with miso and tahini. I traded for bologna on Wonder Bread and butter. I learn about the world. And then one night in our cozy new home in Forestville, California, the door opens and the Birdman appears. He fills the doorway with golden light. He looks to me just like the pictures of Jesus from the Bible storybooks that I steal from my dentist office. He's beautiful. And my mother suddenly turns into this fluid, sunny, shimmering, sensual, pottery-making goddess. And I'm here for everything. The first time they drop acid together, I pick rose hips to place in their laps. Their first movie date, I take my 8-year-old crush. We see Last Tango in Paris. That first Christmas, after they're married, the Birdman takes me to a random forest on a hill to pick the Christmas tree. Real daddy-daughter stuff. He watches me walk around each Christmassy tree that we find, presenting each option with a flourish. I reject each one, more basking in all this attention and consideration. And then I look up and I see the tippy top of a 25-foot tree, just the tippity top, even on all sides, pointy at the top with a star. Perfect. Can we get that one? You mean the top of that tree? All the way up there? Yeah? Is that okay? But of course, my dear, an honor and a pleasure. I watch him climb that 25-foot tree carrying a chainsaw, cut the top off, drop it down, and lay the tree at my feet. Later, he will show up for every school play, every car breakdown, every move from every home. I hug him. He smells like wood chips, old cars, and clean dirt. I tell them that the tree is a little sparse in the back. 8th grade. I'm 12, skipped a grade. I'm all feathered hair, newly sprouted boobs, and tentative confidence. We move a lot, so I am constantly the new girl. Fontana, like Montana. We now live in a blue hippie school bus that my daddy has refurbished into a home, toilet and all. Yeah, the classic hippie school bus, complete with white lace curtains my mother sews on her antique Singer. I try to keep as much distance as possible from the kids less popular than me. There aren't many. I go to the school dance. The cafetorium has never looked better. Colored lights, disco ball, and Blondie. I will drive past your house. I brought my best friend, Lisa Montgomery, with me. I don't even go here. We hit the girls' room to reapply our Bonnie Bell lip smacker. One way or another, I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. I've just visited my rich Aunt Myrna, who took me to get a haircut at a salon. I'm wearing my pink Ditto's jeans, the rainbow tube top, and my brand new matching rainbow platform flip-flops. Flip, flip. Did you see that? Stacey Miller and Steve Fox are broken up. Okay, I don't have a cow. You don't understand. This is Stacey and Steve. No one thought this could ever happen. This is my chance. Okay, hi. Just don't forget, your dad is picking us up at 11. I know. Thank God I told him to meet us at the church across the field. Can you imagine anyone seeing us getting into that hippie school bus? We can't let that happen. I see Steve. Steve Fox. I mean, his last name is Fox. Boy, howdy is he. He's leaning against the wall, feathered brown hair, tan bootleg cords, and a green Izod polo. I want to be that little alligator on his chest. I pop up and approach. Flip, 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 flip. Hey, Steve. So, do you want to dance? Steve's eyes float down to my tube top. Yeah. Okay, but I only dance to slow songs. Yeah, doy. It's way past 10 o'clock, and still no slow song. I'm freaking out. Ring my bell. And then Donna Summer's last dance comes on. The crowds part. We walk towards each other. Flip. It smells like ivory soap and bubblicious bubblegum. The alligator on shirt presses into my chest. I melt into him like a Hershey bar on a hot day. He looks deep into my eyes. I lick my lips and close my eyes. The music changes. I didn't know the song went from slow to fast. Why, Donna Summer, why? Steve shrugs and backs away, pretty much doing the moonwalk. Lisa pounces on me, having an actual cow. Fontana, it's after 11, we have to go now. Goodbye, Steve. The world is so cruel. Wait, we'll walk you out. No, it's okay. My dad is meeting us at the church. It's not safe out there. Coming with you. Please don't follow us. We run with all our might. The tube tops take the street. I'm pulling it up as my platform wedges sink into the soft dirt. Hey girls, wait up. Steve is totally freaking out. My dad opens the box door just as we dive in and closes it behind us. He's sitting cross-legged with his huge scraggly beard and mustache. And as usual, he's in his full-on fake British accent. Well, good evening, ladies. How was the dance? Oh my God, Dad, go now. Dad starts up the engine. I hide under the built-in sofa. My face melts with humiliation. Outside, the boys are banging on the side of the bus. Hey, you dirty hippie! Let the girls go! Oh my God! It's the sheriff! You dirty fucking hippie! Dad opens the bus door and in full-on crazy hippie mode yells, "Wah!" and drives off into the night. We moved after that. I never saw them again. Later, in a hippie school in the back hills of Sebastopol and the high school drama rooms, I will find my people.
So let's dance, let's dance, let's dance, let's dance, let's dance, let's dance tonight. Let's dance for love. Yes, it's my last dance, romance tonight. Oh, I need you by me, beside me, to guide me, to hold me, to scold me, 'cause when I'm bad, I'm so bad. So let's dance, let's dance, let's dance, let's dance, let's dance tonight.
Performances, people can be a little shy about getting started with the questions. So who's feeling not shy? Who's willing to break the ice here? But pretty much anything goes. Anything you're curious about. Oh, great. How so far?
I was curious, and I was here last 2 weeks ago. In the 2 weeks preparing for this show, I was interested in what each of you did differently or worked for.
I just basked in the first one. I added the last line because it felt I was stopping before and I never saw them again. And so I just added that last line after discussion, but yeah, I didn't change much.
Yeah, good question. I did meditate on getting feedback because if somebody know me, I don't use profanity, but there's profanity in this story. So I hope nobody from the job is here. Nobody. This is not the same guy. So, but one of the feedback I'm getting, you have to be authentic. And even though, how can you tell a story about verbal abuse without using the profane, so I really decided I'm gonna try to do this without any profanity at all. And most people are like, you can't do it. You gotta keep it authentic. So that was my debate.
I mostly stayed away from it for the 2 weeks and started working on it again yesterday. It felt better to give myself a space. I'd like to see the video. I haven't seen last week's video. That would be interesting.
I feel very
One.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fontana, what about you?
I think I answered the question, sir.
Wow, so when I was in the middle of
Sure.
Well, like I said, great answer. I know who the more questions here.
Again, I got a question for Fontana.
Yes.
How do you deal? This has nothing to do with tonight's form, but I know that audience said you have a lot of experience. How do you deal with distractions?
Oh, like phones.
No, not like that. In life, everyday life.
Oh, everyday life? God. Dude, I have no idea.
You don't respond to texts.
I don't respond to texts. I'm sorry. Can you ask your question?
No, that was it.
Yeah, so how to focus. I mean, I did rehearse a few times and run through it, but there's a lot of distractions. I do want to say that this is the most Zen experience because you cannot focus on anything else when you're working on something like this. Yeah. So it's terrifying and also like brilliant to do creative work like this because it's what we were meant to do.
Fontana,
yes.
I know
totally.
Yes. You started this during the pandemic, yeah? This piece. And we saw it, for those of us who were in the know. How much, I don't remember anything from the pandemic. Sure. Tell me how much has changed of that, of the piece.
So a lot of rearranging, more showing instead of telling. When I did the pandemic version, it was in my home on a laptop, and I had the entire script like surrounding it because I was changing so much I wasn't able to memorize it. So this was so freeing to just do the whole thing and be in the room with the peoples. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Anna.
Why did you want to do this?
Why did I want to do this? Great question. Yeah, all three of us. Why do you want to do this?
Actually, I was walking Valencia Street trying to sell my book in bike shops and bookstores and not having a hell of a lot of luck. And I walked past here and I remembered that I used to usher here pre-COVID, and I looked up online and saw I did this Monday Night March thing, and that I thought, well, this would be a way to get it out there. Wow. You never know.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was therapeutic because there's trauma with everyone in this room probably have some childhood trauma. And the book that was written in 2014 was called Raised in Hell. And those things that happened 30-some years ago are happening now to the youth that I'm working with right now with Larkin Street. So to be able to manifest those troubles and manage and navigate that without letting it self-destruct you is something that someone can benefit from. So to add a light of humor to it, make that hit a little less impactful. So I wanted to do this for therapy for people, for myself, and for anyone out there who's going through substance abuse, abandonment, and dysfunctional upbringing.
Thank you.
I'm curious about your experience at San Francisco State and leaving a childhood of such trauma to a completely different environment of learning.
Yes.
Yeah, and then what did you study?
Yeah, I will. Let me get that, but I want to get, can I hold that question? Let her get the last answer of why you
Oh, thank
wanted to do
you,
this?
yes. Why? I started working on this probably in the early 2000s, took a class, and I've had so many people, you know, say, wow, you need to put this in a show, because these stories, all true, by the way, are really wild. And so I love storytelling. And when the pandemic started, my lovely wife, who's also my director, in the queue, she really saw me struggling working online full time from home. It, you know, we were all there. And she's like, I'm signing you up for David Ford's class, and you're going. And I was going to my laptop on Saturday mornings. It was really hard. Oh my God. But it really, it's exactly what I needed to do. And so I did that, and I've been wanting to, you know, keep working on it. And you know, you don't have to audition when you do a solo show. I don't have to kowtow to anybody else's vision. It's my vision. Wow. And I've been terrified of doing this. It's really, it's a different thing. And so finally got up the courage. Right.
Yeah. Thank you. So that question, thank you for asking that, was speaks to having a surrogate family. When I moved up here, I had no family up here, but I got on campus at San Francisco State, and these young men from this fraternity embraced me, and they became my family. And they believed that it was because of their culture and mission and all that, but it really was because it was the only color that I could relate to without being traumatized. If I had a bad experience with red, so any group that had red in it, I don't know if they know this, but every group that didn't have red in it, I couldn't deal with it. But these guys have blue, and that's the only blue, the color that I didn't have traumatized. I didn't get a gun stuck in my face for wearing it. So that's why I got embraced with these men for Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So, and we basically grew up together, and these brothers to this day, 30 plus years later, are still my brothers, and they'll come through anytime I need them. They became my family. And I ended up getting, I started going to answer the second part of that question about what I studied there. I tried every major. It was from computer science, you need to do math. I was horrible at math. Then I went from broadcast and all that. I finally started doing youth work in the communities, and that began to resonate with me. And I became a youth service worker by doing child development class, and that's what I do for a living to this day.
Just the second part to that question. So DEON, as your show evolves, are you going to get more into some of the stories that happen in LA? Yes. Or are you gonna like have like episode 2 where you have fraternity stories and raising children? You have your children.
One was here.
So yeah. How does your story evolve?
Thank you for that. Well, most of it is in the book. Raising Hell is a copy of it in the back. So go read the book, man. To answer the question is, they're in the production of a full 1 hour show where I have to develop more character and backdrop behind my mother's story. And I have an older brother who's just the hero of this story, Raising Hell. He kind of came through me on Sydney. So the book, I can only put so much in 20 minutes. And then even an hour to put in a 250 page book, I can have to be so much. So I'll do more in the story, take more from the book, and evolve it into a 1 hour long one-man show eventually. Nice. Thanks.
Yeah. Right. Question. I was wondering on that note of like trying to condense like your story into a certain amount of time or a certain amount of space. I was just wondering like how do you take out those moments for yourself, and this is for each of you, like retroactively thinking about what were the key moments of your life and what you want to share, what's available to share. how do you go about that process? Like, what goes through your mind?
Brilliant question.
I'll start. We had to cut it down to 20 minutes and it was excruciating. A terrible term, but we call it, we have to kill our babies. So there's all these, yeah, there's a lot more. And I think what I was thinking about the other day is that it feels like the core memories when you remember every detail and something shifts within you. So those are the stories that I've remembered and I've told, and in working on them, I discovered, ooh, lots of stuff about my relationship with my mom. Oh boy. So yeah, therapy and a good director who helps you with editing.
Let's see, well, I guess when I decided to apply to the Marsh, originally I was going to have my shtick be complaining about how difficult it is to be creative and get it out there and have people respond to it. And I told a few people that, and they were like, that's so boring. I mean, everybody does that. So then I went back and had to think about it. And then I realized that I looked this up online. They said, try to get one idea. And I realized it really was the sheep, that that I needed to tell a story of how Jim and I went from being just two fairly typical working parents to retiring early. I was 54, he was 61, to travel the world. We ended up doing about 40,000 miles in 21 countries. And it really changed completely who we are and how we think about ourselves. But I realized I had to tell that origin story, really, to distill it down. It was very much the magic of being on our own. And so that's where I went with it, which is pretty much chapter 1 in my book, tells the pivotal event that inspired us to do that.
And can I just ask before Dion goes, do you have a book up there as well, just to give equal time?
I have 4 books.
Okay.
Here, if anybody wants to buy
So
it.
Dion has a book and has a book.
Yes. 4 copies I have here. It's also available online.
Give me 4 years.
Okay. I've got it for 4 years.
It's difficult to put so much like I mentioned before, but for this piece, I wanted to try to recreate those emotions of humor, hardship, and pain in 20 minutes. So which story had the most impact to make a human being feel something, what I felt? So if I can tell that story to make someone feel the fear, or feel the pain of seeing their mother being locked up, or feel the fear of a gun being shoved in your face, or feel the humor of something like that. So I just tried to find those moments, make that emotional roller coaster go up and down, so you don't leave here depressed, and you leave here with a balance of humor and a little bit of the emotional part of it. So I tried to put that in 20 minutes.
You were very successful at that.
Who else has a question? There you go.
Have you all done other shows before, or is this your first time?
You mean solo shows or?
Yeah, solo.
It's my first solo show.
I don't know if it was a show, but I used to do comedy at this place called the End Zone in Oakland. In college, we used to go and tell these stories, and those are I guess that's the closest I'm gonna get to that. But I was also working in Hillcrest Juvenile Hall in youth service. I was telling the same stories to these youth that I was telling in nightclubs without all the stuff, right? So, but they came at it though. They became part of my teaching school to use humor to teach and reach young people. And so I started doing those presentations, and that became my little stage, preparing for this.
The closest I came, I taught American and European history at the community college level. So I have a lot of, I'm very used to speaking in front of people, but having notes. So to do this, where you truly had to memorize and act and perform, this is completely new to me.
I have to say that you all seem to have your stuff memorized pretty well.
Yeah, very well. That's kind of the requirement for a 20-minute monologue.
The base.
See people read
already. There were quite a few.
Oh, yeah, in here?
Yeah.
Oh, did not know that.
Well, I gotta give much love to these actors when I see people spit off these things, cause it's not easy. If it's not embedded in you, you know, I give a new respect to people who do this for a long time and do this, like those soap operas where they have to do it every day, a new script every day. It's amazing.
So do you guys picture everybody naked? Or?
No! Everybody's dark.
Not after my childhood.
Well, I see it was dark this time. It was dark. The last time there was a little light so I could try to make eye contact like you're really telling someone a story. But it was so dark I couldn't see anybody. But that's a good point. I will try to, like I'm really talking to you in your living room having a story. But if you don't have a vision, it's tougher when you can't make eye contact with your audience.
Yeah, I found that the most disconcerting thing about doing this is not making eye contact and having no idea how things are landing. The second thing also is timing. I think until and unless we see the video of ourselves, I don't really know how to time. I think the timing would be the thing I would want to work on.
Actually, on that note, I know Fontana has a director, but for the woman with the bike story and DEON, do you work with directors? And if you don't, like, do you want one? Like, I'm not offering.
I got it.
I'm just wondering if you know if you kind of desire that feedback, or like how if you're only looking at a video,
right? What
do?
Well, I'm in the baby stages of developing Raising Hell into a full one-man show, and I do have a director. She came to the last one. She works out of Napa, and she's tentatively agreed to be the director of Raising Hell, the one-man show as it develops. So, yes, Ms. Tia.
I don't think I'm an actor. I think I'm a storyteller, and I'm not sure what I'll do next. I mean, I did this because I used to usher here, and it felt comfortable and stuff, but I feel a little out of my wheelhouse, I guess.
We'll see about you and the story of the bike. That block. I thought about as a kid when I was riding the bike from the store. I don't know, as a kid, a bunch of us as a kid going the highway and over and out the whole ride. But now, because I don't ride bikes now because I think I'm safe. I'm not safe, but someone like you, you're in the city, but something like what you're doing is country riding, and I'll be interested in another book about places where you can do with your bike.
Yeah, the first book really tells the story of the idea, and then it really took us 10 years to figure it out step by step, making mistakes first locally and whatever, to getting to the point that we felt confident enough to retire. But I do have a lot more stories that I figure I got at least 5 or 6 more books. We crossed Australia by ourselves, the two of us. It took us 6 months. And I'm working on, I got the second book about halfway done. And I am really keen to get it out. Maybe that would be the thing to make me want to continue to do this stuff, because it was just so transformative to see the world at 8 miles an hour from the back roads and the little stores and the little towns and the regular people. I just have no interest really at this point in my life in conventional tourist travel, because this other way of doing it, and to truly put in 25, 50, maybe 60 miles of your own physical effort to get from point A to point B, and then you stop at the end of the day and you have a cup of tea and you're just out there in nature. It's a very difficult taste to acquire, but if you acquire it, as we did, it's just a transformative way to see the world and to meet people. We ended up in the years from when we retired to COVID, we ended up staying in the homes of 159 complete strangers who welcomed us into their homes simply because they knew we were traveling by bicycle. That's a book in itself.
Yeah.
There, those, in 20 different countries, you know, to truly be in somebody's home and, it just was a marvelous thing. So I've got a lot more stories to get. Right, at least.
We'll take another question or two maybe before we wrap things up. Yes, over there.
So this is a question for all three of you. First of all, thank you. This was fabulous. We came because we know Fontana and love her, but now we have to.
I share.
Yeah, I'm curious to how you remember all the stories and the details that you remember them.
Well, I've told him 1,000 times. My son who's here in the back there, my firstborn, he probably like bored that I've heard all this before. I can see he's probably back there. When I start talking, my sons do this thing like wrap it up, Dad. Wrap it up. So I've told this the life lessons. I don't have time to do it in 20 minutes, but there's always a lesson behind every one of those. Even the boo-boo hand lady, there's a lesson behind that. It's like a stigma attached to you. You can wash your hands and do a crime, but if you don't get a stigma, there's a lesson behind each one of them. So those stories have been told to my kids and my nephews and all that over. That's how I remember them, because they're anecdotes.
I think I remember so much in such great detail because newness was happening all the time.
Did any of you record any of them when you were growing up, or diaries?
Yeah, journals, but a lot of it is just telling people, how'd you get your name? Okay. Have a seat.
Right.
Is your mom still with her? My mother is passed. And yeah, she got sober and also would roll joints on the big book, if anybody knows what the big book is. So, ish. Yeah, she passed.
I'd like to say,
what's that?
Did she stay hippie to the end?
I don't think she could have changed.
Yeah.
If she tried. Yeah.
It was the nature of it.
Yeah.
If you were one, you always be that.
She did not think that money was good. Also, I would have liked some financial, training on how to be a person in the world, but yeah.
I'd like to say that one of the great pleasures of this is getting to know DEON and Fontana and bonding back there in the living room.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing the stage with me. Thank you. Second is I started a journal from the first trip that we took in '77. And I sent out emails on the retirement trips, and then people said, oh, you should do a book. And then I realized in the spring of COVID 2020 that the first book needed to explain how we went down this crazy path. And I pulled out all the journals. I had journals from every trip, and I had the maps from every trip, and I had sketches I took on every trip. And that first year and a half of COVID, I was traveling the world again. It was just marvelous because I hadn't read many of those journals since I had written them. They had just been sitting. I have a shelf about this big with all of my travel journals. So that was very fortunate then, because there was like, oh, I remember this detail now. And I also had a lot of photographs too. So I was able to pull things together that way.
I have no photographs.
One last thing before we go. I'd like to go down the road with the three performers. How do we find out more information about you? Online or elsewhere?
Okay.
Beyond?
Well, Raised in Hell is a Facebook page. My website, deondprice.com, is very simple. Again, there's the book Raised in Hell is also an audio book. It's on Audible as well. And all social media. I'm not hard to find. DEON Price, you can get access to all those things on those three mediums. Thank you.
Hello. FontanaButterfield.com, FontanaButterfield@gmail. Nobody else has my name. It's really easy. Facebook. Also, I just got cast in a Shakespeare play today. So I'll be playing the King in All's Well That Ends Well at Theater Rundown. Why not? Throw that in the mix.
I've got a website, annandbreedlove.com, and my book, Part-Time Nomads, is available on the various ways on the internet, and I did bring a few business cards with me if anybody wants.
One thing I forgot to mention in the announcements, excuse me, for those of you in the audience who think, wow, I might like to get up on the Monday Night March stage, the submission window is open from now, I'm sorry, until the end of May or so for our July through December series. So if you have something fictional, something nonfiction you think you'd like to do, just go to the Monday Night March page on the March website, and you'll see the submission information. All right, that's it. Thank you all.